First of all, it's a great honor for me to be invited to speak on this conference. Today, I'd like to talk about the status and the prospects of the Chinese coal value chain from mining to transport to end use. If we look at what's the fundamental drivers underlying global energy trade, I'd like to first compare the energy mixture between China, US, and the world average. The reason is quite simple. Before 2009, US once was the largest energy consumer in the world. However, if we compare energy mixture between US and the world average, they are pretty similar, which means the energy consumption change in the United States won't have drastic impacts on global energy trade. However, the situation in China is entirely different. China basically consumes too much coal, 70% of its primary energy consumption, too less anything else, from oil, gas, nuclear to renewable. So in the future, I firmly believe the convergence of energy mixture between China and the rest of the world will become the fundamental driver behind the global energy trade, with significant implication on global environmental integrity. Outside China, there is a certain misperception about the Chinese economy is. If we look China at an absolute term, China has already surpassed Japan as the world's second largest economy. Sooner or later, China will pass the United States as the largest economy in the world. However, if we look at this country from a per capita basis, currently China's per capita GDP is only about 1/10 of the United States and less than half of global average. Even by 2035, China's per capita GDP will still lag far behind the United States. So that's why I always categorize China as a hybrid economy at crossroads, caught between the developing countries and the developed country bloc. When we look at the decision-making criteria in China's energy sector, energy security has been a pretty important one. Last year, China's dependence rate on foreign oil was 58.5%. To make the situation worse, more than half of China's crude imports are from geopolitically unstable Middle East, and more than 80% of China's oil imports need to pass through the Strait of Malacca, which the Chinese military has no control. Under a hypothetical scenario, if there's any military confrontation going on between US and China, basically China will lose control of most of the access of its oil. So energy security is and will continuously become a very important decision criteria. Then, if we look at year 2005, when the United States oil dependence rate was as high as 60%, when CNOOC went to the United States trying to buy Unoco, it failed. And this was such a high-profile failed acquisition. After that, the Chinese National Oil Company become much more aggressive in terms of investment in other parts of the world. However, because of the ongoing unconventional oil and gas boom in the United States, currently in America, the dependence rate on foreign oil has fallen to about 40% now. So that's part of the reason why CNOOC was able to buy Nexon this time without much political opposition from US. This is very important. I personally believe China is the country that will benefit most from the US shale gas revolution outside the United States. Then we need to look at the environmental issues. When the People's Republic of China was founded in 1949, carbon emission in China was not such a big deal. However, last year, coal-fired carbon emission in China were 27% higher than national carbon dioxide emissions in the United States, which happened to be the second largest carbon emitters in the world. However, even so, climate change has become quite high political priority in China. It's not the most important environmental issues. If we look at air pollution, the air quality in Beijing and adjacent region have reached crisis level in spring 2013. I believe local environmental issues such as air pollution and water contamination will become increasingly more important. So if we need to work on climate issue in China, we need to link climate change in China with those local environmental issues, especially air contamination. Now I'd like to give a brief introduction of the Chinese coal value chain. At the production end, China currently produces about 46% of global coal. 1/3 of Chinese coal are from those so-called township and village enterprise, which is the private industry in China. And they are also related to China's miserable safety record in the coal industry and underreporting of China's coal stats. In the transportation end, China's transportation infrastructure has already been bottlenecked by large quantity of coal that need to be transported within China. And currently half of Chinese coal are used for power generation. This ratio is expected to increase over time. This map shows China's coal resource distribution. Basically, the majority of Chinese coal, more than 80%, are on the northern end. If we divide China into another half, in the left side, West China, it's also they have the endowment of the majority of the Chinese coal resource. However, the consumption center is in coast China, so that's why Chinese coal need to be transported from northern to southern China, from west to east China. Just now I mentioned that 1/3 of Chinese coal are produced by the so-called township and village enterprise. However, if we look at the Chinese coal production profile over time, there has been tremendous improvement in terms of the average capacity of the mine. Whenever we look at the challenge within the Chinese coal industry, we need to remember one fact. China has the most advanced coal mine in the world. I have visited several mines operated by Senhua. Their safety record and their efficiency has been the state of the art in the world. However, China has also have the worst coal mine in the world. So how to apply environmental technological standards across the entire Chinese coal mining industry will continuously be a challenge for the central government in Beijing and the local governments in different parts of the world. This map shows China's coal flow by rail. So far, railway is the most important transportation mode used by Chinese coal industry. If we look at the so-called Jinshan region, basically the majority of Chinese coal production are produced in this region because the consumption is less than 1/5 of national total. This is the engine of Chinese coal industry. So majority of the coal need to be transported from this region, from the railway to the Beijing and the adjacent region. Then we use marine transportation to ship the coal to other parts of China. This is also where the bottleneck of Chinese coal industry is. So when we look at the resource in China, China so far has the second largest proven coal reserve in the world. But because of the transportation bottleneck, it doesn't make sense for China to mine all its domestic coal demand. This map shows China's coal end use by sector so far. The power industry is the most important sector to consume Chinese coal. And also, this is the sector with the greatest potential to deploy CCS technology at scale. And this ratio is expected to reach 70 to 80% over the next several decades. Before 2009, China had been quite competitive coal exporters in the Asia-Pacific market. However, because of ongoing dispute between China's major utility and major coal miners on the price of contract thermal coal, in 2009, the major coal user in coastal China looked outside China. So China first became a net coal importer. However, just within 2 years, in 2011, China surpassed Japan as the largest coal importers in the world. Last year, China's coal imports increased by near 60%. And if we look at the size of global coal trade, it's less than 1/3 of the domestic Chinese coal market. So any change in Chinese coal imports and export balance can have pretty significant impacts on global energy trade. When we look at where China imports its coal, since the country became a net coal importer. Apparently, Indonesia thermal coal is quite important. Currently, China imports more than 40% of coal from Indonesia. And the coking coal from Australia is important. However, there is one interesting phenomenon now. Because of the shale gas boom in the US, the future of coal in the United States is not built for at all. So that's why the US coal industry is very interested in exporting a large quantity of thermal coal from the Powder River Basin to China. However, in the past, although there were about at least 5 terminals proposed along the west coast in the United States, none of them can pass the permitting process because of the environmental opposition. So what's going on between US and China? will have a very significant impacts on global coal trade in the future. So this is the Powder River Basin. It's the largest thermal coal reserves in the world. And these are the 5 terminals proposed along the U.S. West Coast. Basically, the aggregate capacity of this terminal were more than 150 million tons of coal. It's quite significant. Currently, because of the lack of capacity, most of the coal needed to be shipped as far as Vancouver in Canada and Prince Rupert in Canada in order to reach China. And also, many of those coking coal in East Coast U.S. need to go through Panama Canal in order to reach China. The transportation cost of U.S. coal exports has been quite substantial and will keep serving as a barrier for coal exports in the U.S. So now I'd like to summarize my presentation. Coal will continuously be utilized by the Chinese decision makers to fuel its economic development and ensure the country's energy security. I don't have time to go through the energy security arena. However, if we look at the coal liquefaction and coal chemical development, one of the rationale is to use coal to substitute oil imports to ensure national energy security. And environmental integrity, especially air quality and climate change, have become increasingly important. And I believe air quality issues can become a good news for many NGOs in China to move China's climate agenda forward. And China's rising importance in global coal trade is very complicated. For instance, if we look at the Beyond Coal campaign in the United States, from a regional environmental perspective, it makes sense to kill the U.S. coal value chain from mining to transport to end use. Above all, the Intel coal value chain is quite environmentally unsustainable. However, if we look at this issue from a global environmental perspective, if no coal is produced in the United States, then more coal needs to be produced in countries such as Indonesia, Mongolia, South Africa. Well, the environmental regulation may not as stringent as the United States. Well, the NGO community may not have much influence on the national energy policy decision-making process. So that's why I firmly believe dialogue between China and the international community is the way forward to resolve China's coal challenge, because it's indeed not a domestic issue in China. It's a global challenge. If the world needs to control the average temperature rise below 2 centigrade, there's no way for us to achieve such a goal without first resolve China's coal challenge. Thank you very much.